Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Face to Face Shorts. Today, we're going to be discussing some more key players and all stars of the MKULTRA team. Super popular guy that we didn't get to discuss in the second episode or even in the first episode, which is kind of a disgrace because this guy was definitely a huge player.
Who is he?
And that little boy grew up to be Dr. Louis Jolyon West. So just to kind of recap, after World War II, the U.S. Department of Defense kind of secretly imported many of the top German Nazi scientists, as we talked about before. Episode 2, we're talking about Operation Paperclip, bringing over all them Nazis, because otherwise the Russians will get them. You know, these spies revealed that Russia was working on and developing counter-espionage programs to shut out any information gathered by Western spies. And basically, the creation of the OSS and CIA was formed in order to expand the efforts into the area of behavior modification and counter-espionage, using drugs and hypnosis and implants and all kinds of, shall we say, unethical experimentation that later would become MKUltra. In the 1950s, Jolyon West, when he was at the Air Force, he was a doctor at Lackland Air Force Base and was appointed to a panel to discover why 36 of 59 airmen captured in the Korean War had confessed or cooperated in Korean allegations of war crimes committed by the United States. Amid the speculation that the airmen had been brainwashed or drugged, West came to the simple conclusion, quote, "We found just one device used to confuse, bewilder, and torment our men until they were ready to confess to anything. That device was prolonged, chronic loss of sleep," end quote. So basically he was saying that all the terrible things that these airmen were confessing to that would be considered like completely unbelievable and treasonous were just caused to exhaustion.
Pretty effective form of torture.
Yeah, no kidding. The airmen avoided being court-martialed for these events as a result of West's research, so he kind of got him off the hook a little bit. West did his psychiatry residency at Cornell University, as we had talked about before. Yep, an MKUltra institution and site of the Human Ecology Fund. He was later given a job at the age of 29 as chairman of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Oklahoma, where in 1985 he became a subcontractor for the CIA and was given at least $20,000 to kind of kickstart the MKUltra sub-project 43, which is basically concerned with, quote, "the research and development of chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of employment in clandestine operations to control human behavior."
Great.
So just spelling it out for you, mind control. The proposal submitted by West to the CIA was titled, quote, "Psychophysiological Studies of Hypnosis and Suggestibility," end quote, with an accompanying document titled, quote, "Studies of Dissociative States." So basically what we've been talking about this whole time, the bread and butter of the MKUltra program. The program consisted of some 149 sub-projects, which the agency contracted out the various universities, research foundations, and similar institutions. As we had said before, at least 80 institutions and 185 private researchers participated. Because the agency founded MKUltra indirectly, many of these participating individuals weren't even aware that they were working for the agency.
Great.
A lot of these people had no idea that they were basically feeding the devil that was going to basically enslave us. The program engaged in many morally objectionable activities, including the use of unwitting U.S. and Canadian citizens as test subjects, which led to controversy regarding its legitimacy. MKUltra uses numerous methodologies to manipulate people's mental states and alter brain functions, including the superstitious administration of drugs, especially acid, and other chemicals, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, abuse, etc., etc., etc. So that's this guy's background. So knowing what we now know, it might change your perspective slightly on some of these next two brief couple of historical events. Jack Ruby, Marcus, who's that? Jackie.
He's an assassin.
He is, actually. He was a Dallas, Texas nightclub owner who fatally shot Lee Harvey Oswald. Who's that?
Another assassin.
Exactly. Fucking talking in circles here. Ruby shot Oswald with a snub-nosed .38 caliber pistol in a police garage while in custody after being charged with assassinating U.S. President John F. Kennedy. as well as allegedly murdering Dallas policeman J.D. Tippit as well, who also looks a lot like Kennedy randomly. A Dallas jury found him guilty of murdering Oswald, and he was then sentenced to death. Ruby had an isolated cell constructed for him to live in as he awaited his fate and contemplated the possibility of being executed. The proposal stated that, quote, there is a reason to believe that the environmental manipulations can affect the tendencies for dissociative phenomenon to occur. Isolation, in particular, can markedly change the individual's response to suggest in the form of verbal communication, and it's proposed that the new experiments utilizing specific environmental manipulators, including sensory isolation, to begin. So it just sounds like a fancy scientific way of saying, keep this guy away from everything. Dr. West's proposal specified that these can produce marked personality changes, which Ruby appeared to have apparently undergone. West's examinations of him, the report assesses that Ruby was psychotic and delusional at the time. In this report, West said that the hypnosis and intravenous sodium pentanol were included among possible techniques to be used on Ruby. In a proposal to the CIA for continuing his MKULTRA work with them, he proposed that the combined use of hypnotic techniques and automatic drugs to be exercised. So sodium pentanol, which I guess is like a hardcore barbiturate, is like used in like a truth serum drugs, basically. It's frequently used in a bunch of the MKUltra experiments and stuff with Gottlieb and all those other guys. Rudy's conviction was later appealed and he was granted a new trial. However, as the date for the new trial was being set, Ruby became ill in prison and suddenly died of a pulmonary embolism from lung cancer in September 1964. The Warren Commission concluded that Ruby acted alone in killing Oswald, and various groups believe that Ruby was involved with major figures of organized crime and that he killed Oswald as part of an overall surrounding plot in the Kennedy assassination. So,
covering tracks.
Exactly. Jolyon West was the guy who was performing this psychological evaluation on Ruby, providing the drugs, providing the treatment, making sure he's isolated, making sure he gets an embolism in his lung, and he probably didn't make him do that, but that involves another person in American history that's super interesting, Patty Hearst. Have you heard of this person, Marcus? You fond of history there?
Related to Randolph Hearst?
Yes, actually. Exactly. She's an American author and actress, granddaughter of the American publishing magnate William Randolph Hearst. And we remember that douchebag who ironically created his own propaganda disinformation campaign to oppress and denigrate a whole group of Black Americans and Mexican immigrants, as well as destroying the hemp industry and using his newspaper empire to do it, basically.
And we mentioned him in the fake news episode.
Exactly. Well done. Talking about reefer madness and yellow journalism, which is kind of ironic because this guy family would then fall victim to a different kind of mind control. So she became internationally known for her events following her 1974 kidnapping by a left-wing terrorist group, the Sudanese Liberation Army. Hearst was found 19 months after being abducted, by which time she was a fugitive wanted for serious crimes committed with the members of the group. She was held in custody, and there was speculation before the trial that her family's resources would basically be able to pull her out of jail. So she was off running around with these dudes for
committing
days,
crimes with
robbing
them.
banks and stuff. Yeah, there's a awesome picture of her with a fucking machine gun, like that was taken from like a CCTV camera or something like that, or maybe it was like a promotional.
Seems vaguely
like
familiar.
An ISIS thing. Yeah, I could show you the picture right now. It's pretty dope looking, actually. She could get total badass. It's hot.
See, but is it one of those things where it's like they would have killed her if she didn't go along with it? Which doesn't necessarily make her innocent.
No, totally. Well, I mean, yeah, one could easily freaking say that.
I mean, if I was her defense attorney,
that's exactly what I would have gone with. Exactly. That's a no-brainer right there. My client was terrified, Your Honor. Look at her.
Yeah.
She's 115 pounds soaking wet. She can't carry that. These guys are huge. In 1976, though, she was convicted for the crime of bank robbery and sentenced to 35 years in prison, later reduced to 7 years, thanks to Dr. Jolyon West, who was the court appointed basically to determine her capacity to like stand trial and to see if she well, because he's a brainwashing expert, so basically he can kind of lay down his what do you think happened?
Expert opinion.
Exactly. Believing that Hearst displayed all the classic signs of coercion and brainwashing, he wrote the newspaper after the trial asking President Carter to release Hearst from prison. Some weeks after her arrest, Hearst repudiated her SLA alliance. Basically, she had Stockholm Syndrome. It's almost a side of a fact that she was super wealthy is because, like you were saying, dude, if anybody got kidnapped, they're under a completely different under immense mental stress, and obviously they're not thinking clearly. And one could just argue like, well, they were temporarily insane, or they were just doing everything that they were instructed to do in order to not die, basically.
Exactly.
So I don't know exactly what she ended up doing other than robbing a bank, which is like, I mean, hey, if nobody got shot, like, whoop-de-doo. Yeah, it's just another little intersectional.
She's a white woman, dude. She'll be fine.
Yeah, she'll be, and she's got tons of money.
With lots of money to boot.
Yeah, no kidding. It's just another one of the main all-stars that kind of intersects with all this stuff that we got to in the other episodes, but there's wasn't enough time, damn it, enough time. So thank you for taking this little journey with us down MKULTRA memory lane. Yeah. And we hope you guys are going to tune in for the next one. Bye-bye.
Peace out.